it's Rachel and welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be about all the things you can and cannot compost. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised with all the things that you can compost, and I hope to leave you shocked and pleased. If you're wondering what kind of composting I'm talking about in terms of what you can and cannot compost, today's going to be all about the standard traditional composting, not bokashi. And if you want to know more about bokashi, you can check out my video here. This is about stock standard in your backyard or a cheeky bucket in your kitchen composting, just standard composting. So let's get started. This month is all about composting. So if you're interested in composting or finding ways that you can make your house a little bit more zero waste and environmentally friendly, hit that subscribe because that is what you'll get on my channel. I'm going to start by breaking it down into my greens and my browns again. Green being anything, I guess, more moist, and brown being more like the dry things, like you can see here. Remember, you do need a good mix of both green and brown. It's essentially important to have a bit of both to compost and decompose a lot faster. If you think it's a little bit wet, then you might want to start adding a little bit more brown in, and vice versa. If you're seeing it to be a little bit dry, you might want to add some more of your green in. So let's get into what we can compost. Something you might want to consider when you're looking at things you can compost is a length of time to decompose. Now, when we start to talk about the greens, you'll understand what I mean with length of time to decompose. There is some organic matter that does just take a little bit longer to decompose than others. But don't worry, I'll highlight those two as we go through. Green matter. Here's all the green matter things that you can put in your traditional composter. Greens is basically anything, well, green. Kind of wet, kind of moist. Think all your veg, think all of your fruit. They can be whole fruit, whole veg. Obviously things that are starting to decompose, if it's still good, you should probably eat it, right? Your skins, your leftovers, anything that's food related. Some fruit and veg that might take a little bit longer to decompose than you would expect are citrus peels. New one for me too, but citrus peels can take up to 6 months. Another one to look out for are avocado seeds and avocado shells. They take a really long time to decompose. Thank you, Mum, for that tip. What you can do when you have items like this that do take a little bit longer to decompose is you can cut them. The smaller they are, the more microbes can get to them. Maybe just cut them smaller and you'll have no problems and they'll decompose faster. Other great things that are green matter: tea and coffee. Now, if you are using traditional tea bags, you do need to make sure you take out the metal staple, and also make sure that the bag you have it in is like a paper material. If you've got those beautiful fancy nylon tea bags, they're not going to decompose. If that's the case, just slice it and pour the tea leaves inside the compost instead, and unfortunately you're just going to have to disregard that tea bag. Other green things are weeds, grass clippings, flowers, plants, anything that's kind of got that green appeal to it. Also remember, if it's diseased, it's not for your compost. So that's all the green things taken care of. Let's go to brown. Brown things are brown. Think things like cardboard, paper, pizza boxes, paper towels, boxes of any kind, anything that comes delivered to you. Let me show you what I have. This is our Amazon bag. This is compostable. However, before I compost it, I have to take off the plastic. As you can see here, there's all this plastic that I'll need to remove. But once I've removed all of that, I'll rip it up into small pieces and I'll put it straight into my composter. Other brown matter that you probably wouldn't have thought of is cotton. Yes, cotton. Think your cotton balls, your cotton squares, think your bed sheets, think your towels. Now, if these are 100% cotton, you can decompost them. But what I do suggest you do is to cut it into small little squares. If you want them to decompose fast, you'll need to cut them into small sizes so the microorganisms can do their work. Otherwise, you may be waiting a while. Other brown matter: dust collected from your vacuum cleaner, sawdust, toilet paper. Yes, you can compost toilet paper. It's up to you how you want to do that. If it's yellow, it's mellow. If it's brown, you might want it to go down. I'm going to give it a try. Here's some random things that you probably wouldn't think that you could compost that you can. Corks from your wine bottles, not the plastic ones, the cork ones. Your bamboo toothbrushes that you've been buying in the compost. Hair. Yes, your hair, your dog's hair, your cat's hair. These things can go inside your compost. Pretty cool, right? Perhaps next time when you go to the hairdresser, you can ask to collect your hair and bring it home and put it in your compost. Or why don't you ask your hairdresser what they do with their hair every day? Perhaps they don't know they can compost it and you could give them a great idea. I'm going to touch on the subject of poo. I love talking about poo. It makes me laugh. I don't know why. I'm like a child. It's ridiculous. But can you compost poo, or feces for that matter? Yes, you can. However, you do need to be very careful with the way you handle this sort of compost, and I would highly recommend that you look into it and do some extra research. We use cloth nappies for our son, and obviously that means we collect his poo and we flush it down the toilet. With that being said, and everything I've looked into in terms of composting poo, we have decided that it's not something that we want to do. In that you would need to have 2 separate compost bins, which we could do, but there really is a lot that goes into composting fecal matter. But if you are going to do it, awesome, I'd love to know. Please tell me all about it. Another hot tip for poo, if you really see, I love poo talk. When you want to compost poo, you do need to be careful in terms of you can only compost herbivore poo. That means animals that only eat plants and vegetables, which is why dogs, cats and humans generally are a bit of a no-no. I'm not saying you can't, there's just a special way of doing it. With that, we have decided to not put poo on our composting menu. Can you compost catalogues and magazines? Unfortunately, the answer is no. Unless you know it's printed on like a specific kind of paper with a soy ink, most of the time it's a big fat no. This is because magazines and catalogues are generally produced with highly chemicalized plastic and paper. They are not good for your compost because that turns into fertilizer that you're then going to put onto your garden. I hope you've learned about what you can and cannot compost and understanding what is green and what is brown. Remember, it's always good to have a good mixture of both the greens and the browns in your compost to give it variety. Variety is the spice of life, even for your compost. So make sure you give it a good dose of brown if it's looking a little bit wet and moist, and if it's looking a little bit dry, chuck in a few more greens. I haven't discussed meat, and I'm sure you're wondering, why hasn't she talked about meat? The answer is yes. You can compost meat. It will take longer to decompose. Just like when you eat meat and it takes a long time for your body to digest it, it's the same thing for your compost. When you compost meat, it also produces a foul smell. This foul smell can then have an increased risk of you having pests come and hover around your compost bin or your composting area. That's just another thing to take into consideration. If you are a heavy meat eater, I do highly recommend a bokashi so it can break down and decompose faster before you put it into traditional. Eat plant-based and you won't have this problem. Want to know what will make your compost decompose faster and get you that rich fertilizer? Me too, but I'm not going to share that in this video. It's going to be my next video. Make sure that you subscribe to my channel and look out for our videos 2 to 3 times a week where you can learn more about composting and living more consciously in your home.